Hey guys, Joe here. Basically, a charming, intellectual MMA guru, if you would. Um, it's fun taking shots. I mean, I don't feel like anyone really likes that guy anyway, so I think it's okay to take a shot at him. And I'm here to talk about UFC Fight Night St. Louis, which thankfully was a card that wasn't stuck in the apex, but it still suffers from that post UFC 300 staleness, or a hangover, if you would. Most of what I have for tonight isn't actually about the fights, or it's not really about the card itself. There was two big news stories that I wanted to kind of talk about specifically. So enough of the fights. Let's get to the talk. The main event, we have Derrick Lewis versus Rodrigo Nascimento, and this was kind of a classic Derrick Lewis fight. Nascimento controlling him in the clinch and on the ground, avoiding big shots while he could, and then third round, here comes a big Derrick Lewis right hand that drops Nascimento, and Derrick Lewis swarms on him, getting the TKO finish, and then he started stripping and mooned the audience. Which I gotta be honest, I thought was really funny. Honestly, I really like Derrick Lewis still. He's a lot of fun. He's always a blast and a half. And I think he's done being a contender at heavyweight. I'm pretty sure he's done being a contender at heavyweight. But he can still be this fun. He can continue being this fun gatekeeper that just KOs people who aren't ready yet. And when he wins, you're going to get a really fun celebration out of it, which I'm 10,000% down for it every time. It's so much fun. For the rest of the card, I'm talk about some of these in more detail, to not just brush over this card. Joaquin Buckley, he got his wish to fight on the St. Louis card, native of St. Louis and all that, and he got a unanimous decision win in a pretty dominant showing over Nursultan Ruziboev. Lots of wrestling, him putting down Ruziboev over and over. Second round was just a really big wrestling attack. Ruziboev in the first round was getting knees, he went for a pretty cool flying knee at one point. But third round, Buckley puts that power on Ruziboev's chin, and he couldn't get the finish. He had a mount, was just pouring it on. The ref gave him some warnings. They got back to the feet, and then they kind of let it rip with no finish. But it was pretty fun. Final round was good, so he gets a unanimous decision win. Then he calls out Conor McGregor. Common thing you see, a lot of people do. I don't even like Conor, but a lot of people like to call him out for to get their name attached to him, and because he's, let's admit it, for a lot of guys who are active and really going at it, that have a calm game, potentially a bad matchup for him, especially a bigger guy like Joaquin Buckley, who used to fight at middleweight. He calls him out, says oh, you want to fight at welterweight, but you're fighting a guy who's a lightweight, fighting at welterweight. That's whack. And I'm yeah, I agree with that. Then he calls his whole family a bunch of garden tools, a bunch of garden equipment, which I admittingly was laughing pretty hard at. But I'm not from the hood, so to speak. I'm not I'm not you know what I mean? I grew up on the south side of OKC, which is I'm definitely familiar with how the streets are, right? And even though I'm not 100% from it, but I'm very familiar with it. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And that's a pretty bad offense in the talking smack game. I would say that's probably, in my opinion, that's a big no-no. I say leave family out of it always, right? It's a pretty bad offense. I think it's probably one of the worst things you can say to Conor. It's funny because of how the language he used to go about it. Kind of reminded me of an old rock promo back in the day. But this isn't professional wrestling where someone's going to go in there with a joking manner in a promo. This is real. So it's going to be taken a little bit differently. So expect a dolly to be thrown again here Dolly's going through another bus. Calling it now. Carlos Ulberg, he got a 12-second KO over Alonzo Minifield. I actually thought Minifield was going to take this fight. He has more experience, more well-rounded game in this, but nah, man. Carlos Ulberg made me look stupid putting on the counter show with that quick win. Carlos Diego Ferreira, one of my French boys, a big Carlos Diego Ferreira, got a TKO win in the third round over Mateusz Rebecki, with Rebecki's eyes just being mashed and swollen shut. He kind of looked how Bill the Butcher described himself after a fight once in Gangs, New York. If anyone's seen that movie, you might get the reference. Which are all mashed together. Love that movie. Sean Woodson, he got a really awkward decision win over Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres. I thought Caceres won the fight, and for sure I thought Caceres won the final round. But one judge gave that final round to Woodson. Very odd stuff, and sadly something we expect with fight cards, that there's going to be one case of incredibly incompetent judging. I heard there was another one on this card, but admittingly didn't watch some of the early prelims. But I did watch this, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I agree with that. Valdo Cortez Acosta got a decision win over Robelis de España. And Chase Hooper got a Darce choke win over Vyacheslav Borshev, but Borshev didn't tap. He had a huge hematoma, like right here, though, but he didn't tap. So it's kind of an awkward situation there. Regardless, before the submission win, Hooper was putting him in the mixer on the ground. So Esteban Ribovics, I forgot how they said it. I should have notated how they said it. But as you guys know me, I'm bad with pronunciations. He got a super quick 37-second head kick KO win over Terrence McKinney. And gotta be honest, I'm legitimately wondering about his long-term health at this point. Terrence McKinney, very fun fighter. He kind of feels like the ultimate glass cannon fighter. Like, you throw him in a fight, he's kill or be killed. But it feels like it's been killed lately, if that makes sense. And I don't like that with a young fighter. He's a young guy. It feels like he's getting put out pretty easy. 37-second KO. It's rough. You know, I guess it's just somehow the fight game is sometimes, but doesn't mean I have to like it. Tabitha Ricci got a unanimous decision win, or it was a split decision, I believe, over Tisha Torres. Now Tisha Pennington, formerly Tisha Torres. I still want to call her Tisha Torres all the time. But it was, I have it here in the notes. Split decision. Finally, Trey Waters got a unanimous decision over Billy Goff. Charles Johnson got one over Jake Hadley. And Veronica Harding got one over JJ Aldrich of the Deep. Let's talk about something a little more serious here. So, the first of the two major stories I have for me today is the sad passing of Art Jimmerson. As he was famous for competing in UFC 1 with one boxing glove. He didn't want to break that hand, so he wore a boxing glove for it. He held a 0-1 record in MMA, but he fought Royce Gracie at UFC 1, got submitted, first submission ever in UFC history, and he was a part of it. And despite only the one fight in UFC and MMA in general, he's become kind of a beloved, like, icon in a sense for us, like in our early days. I always talk about Art Jimmerson, early days Art Jimmerson. He mostly competed in boxing, though, until like 2002. He had a record of 33-18 in boxing, fought a ton of world champions, despite never being a champion outside of like a Golden Gloves championship in the 80s. I couldn't find the cause of death, but regardless, it's a terrible tragedy. He passed away at the, in my opinion, still very too young age of 60 years old. My prayers go out to his whole family. So, one love for one glove here at the INC family. So, it's just terrible to hear. Just heartbreaking. But we can end on some happy news of sorts. We have a retirement. Matt Brown, a guy who, in my opinion, is a first ballot Hall of Famer in the Violence Hall of Fame. He's decided to call it a career. Legendary dude. Like, his career is legendary. Incredible finishing ability. Non-stop action, just putting on the pace, putting on the pressure. One of the first guys I remember to be like a really elite ring cutter. You know, I used to remember him, if they would go to his right, he would leap in with a left, or to his left-hand side, he'd leap in with a left hook. If they would go to his right side, he'd throw a body kick to kind of cut him off. Most famously, I feel like, was the Eric Silva fight. So I was always a big fan of that. For those who aren't too familiar with like Matt Brown's story, Matt Brown, he actually had like a lot of drug issues, back in the day. Had a heroin overdose. He was pronounced dead, and came back, obviously. And that's where his nickname originates from, Matt the Immortal Brown. He was actually first introduced to the UFC audiences on the 7th season of The Ultimate Fighter on Team Griffin. If anyone's seen that clip of that season, like, Matt Animal, Matt the Animal, like Forrest Griffin, like losing his voice, just screaming and going wild. It was in Matt Brown's fight. I think his name was Jeremy. He fought a dude who put lime juice in his dipping tobacco, and was like, I want to fight him, and he head kicked him. It was awesome. But he didn't win that season, but he was on it. That was like our first introduction for it. And so here's some fun stats of Matt Brown. 43 fights, 24-19 record. And if anyone's out there is like, that doesn't seem like a great record, here is a list of people on this resume: Carlos Condit, Diego Sanchez, Jake Ellenberger, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, Damian Maia, Johnny Pigrig Hendricks, Robbie Lawler, Mike Swick, Chris Lytle, Ricardo Almeida, Wonderboy, Young Hun Kim. Almost all those guys at the time of recording were ranked. And that's not even leaving out some of the flash in the pan names that he had beaten that were like kind of hot at the time, but obviously didn't pan out. Like, we have guys like Eric Silva, James Wilkes, not Wicks. Watched John Wick earlier, sorry. Mike Pyle, Jordan Meehan, Tim Means, John Howard, and Pete Sell. I have to be missing. There's probably some names on here, like Eric Silva. I said that twice now. Gotta be missing some names on here. Dude had an absolutely ridiculous record, just a resume as a whole. Unbelievable. 16 KOs, 6 submissions, like 22 finishes of 24 fights. Unbelievable. Always in that big time violence mood. I always loved it. Seriously, if you have a personal Hall of Fame where it's just guys you love and like you want to give props to, put him in there, induct him, because he's in mine. Much love to the immortal Matt Brown. Happy retirement, bud. Also, he's got a great music taste. At least I think so. That's it for me, though. I'll be back next week to cover Barboza versus Lerone Murphy. Actually, this sounds kind of fun. I'm really interested in Lerone Murphy. He's a fun 145er for me. Of course, be on the lookout for a new retro review, which, as I say that, it's on the Patreon right now, early UFC 156, and if you're a Patreon member, you can watch content early. That's up, that's live. I've watched it early. It was awesome. I'm very biased because I get to talk about my favorite fight ever. UFC 156 as my favorite fight of all time. But even today, I'm going to try and shoot another retro review. It's of course Mother's Day, so it's going to be after Mother's Day. So also, I didn't totally airheaded it. Happy Mother's Day to any of our fans that are mothers, and if we don't have any that are mothers, because it's mostly a guy-centered in terms of our interaction, I've noticed. But if we have any fans that are mothers, happy Mother's Day to you, 110%. And if we don't have any that are mothers, then that's fine. Happy Mother's Day to every mom in the world, not just the MMA world, but the whole world as a whole. You guys deserve a day to yourselves, and today's it. I hope it's a fantastically beautiful day for all of you. I'm Joe with the INC. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.